Welcome to the UFC Vegas 106 prop drop, where I briefly run through the card and show you guys or give you guys my favorite props from either side of the matchup, and then obviously let you know which one I like the most in each matchup, and then end off this segment with the top 3 prop bets as well as a long shot, which is kind of been struggling the last couple of weeks. I'll be completely honest about that. But we're going to try to get back on track here. And again, that's the reason I've went from top 3 prop bets, the segment, which I used to do a few months back and for a long time, to this prop drop format where I'm able to go through every single matchup and highlight some spots that you might be overlooking that even if they're not included in the top 3 props or long shot, there might be still a way for you to take advantage of that. So keep an eye on that. All right. Without further ado, let's get right into this. First matchup up, we got Tisha Pennington going up against Luana Pinheiro. This is a matchup where the money line, very surprising that Pennington, who is often in very close fights throughout her career, finds herself at minus 400, minus 350, with Pinheiro, who can match her with her physicality, land some big shots and sway the judges her way, and maybe even get some grappling dominance going where she can control Pennington in some of these spots. The big issue in Pinheiro's game has often been her cardio, where we see her either get finished in the second or third rounds or get grinded out in those last few rounds. But I was very impressed with what we saw when she went up against Jillian Robertson last time around, who was able to win the first round. But Pinheiro fought back in the second round, was able to stop the takedowns and land bigger shots to win that round on all 3 scorecards. But then eventually her cardio caught up to her and she ended up losing that third round. But the fact that she was able to, maintain her cardio enough to at least win that second round against somebody who's a very high pressure fighter like Robertson is very impressive. And here against Pennington, Pennington's not this, buzzsaw of a fighter. She's not a high-paced fighter, and I could see this being a fight where Pinheiro can be very competitive for, 10, 12 minutes, and that could be enough for actually to win this fight by decision, which you can get at plus 500. Now, Pennington is one of the most durable fighters on the roster. All of her losses have come by decision. She's not often in much trouble, but Pinheiro is, more of a finisher. She is somebody that often is able to get those early finishes, and for her to win inside the distance is plus 700. I don't think it's a big spot to really be taking a shot on, but something to consider if you think that she has a high probability of getting the early finish here because of her physicality and power advantage. On the flip side for Pennington, again, money line out of whack. Obviously, she's not much of a finisher. She only has 2 finishes in her 14 fights, one of those even being a doctor stoppage kind of thing. Her to win by decision minus 190 is still too chalky as well. So I do like the Pinheiro side. Pinheiro by decision would be my favorite prop for this matchup. All right, next up, we got Hyun Sung Park going up against Carlos Hernandez. Park is one of my favorite Korean prospects on the roster, and I think he has the overall chops here to really put some damage on Hernandez that he's not able to keep up with. I think Park is faster. I think he has more power. I think he's more athletic, and I think those traits will allow him to land better damage, stay away from too much trouble from Hernandez. And again, Hernandez is also a guy that often finds himself backtracking in a lot of spots, which makes it look good optically speaking for the opponents that are able to just walk him down and stalk him. And I think Park will benefit from that tremendously. I think Park by decision plus 185 is probably the way to go. Long shot here, Park by knockout plus 420. I don't think that comes to fruition, but something that kind of just caught my eye there. And then on the flip side for Hernandez, not a huge finisher. Park, very difficult to put away, obviously undefeated to this point. Hernandez to win by decision is currently plus 220. Our next up, we got Denise Gomes going up against Elise Reed. Similar to the Pennington fight, very surprised. Gomes finds herself at minus 500 in this fight. She's not this dominant grappler, which has often been the flaw in Reed's game. She's slowly improving that aspect of her game, and she's even won fights where she's been taken down multiple times recently. And if this turns out to be purely a striking battle, Reed is very live to win this matchup. You know, she is a very technical Taekwondo specialist, and we've seen her have some really good success in the striking realm, whereas Gomes is a little bit more of a headhunter and looking to just land her big power and put her opponents away. I think it's going to be Gomez's ability to grind this out in the clinch, where she ends up getting the better of Reed, just as we saw what Jessica Penne was able to do in the first round of that fight against Reed. But again, you're getting Gomes by decision at -105, and this is a very, a fight that's won on a very thin line. Gomes to win by knockout +340. If she's able to get that dominant position on the mat and start raining down big shots, that's a possibility of her winning this fight. But the one that really catches my eye here, obviously her money line already +400 is absolutely crazy for Elise Reed, but her to win by decision is +800. Now she does have some sting on her punches, but she doesn't have many finishes recently on her record, and I think that this is one of those fights that we will see end up hitting the scorecards, and Reed will have a very good shot of actually winning this fight, which is why Reed by decision at +800 is a very intriguing spot for me. All right, next up, we got Luana Santos going up against Tainara Lisboa. Clear grappler versus striker matchup here. And I think it's going to be the judo and BJJ of Santos that bails her out of some bad spots here against Lisboa, who will have some success in the combination striking realm. But I think that Santos will be able to start landing takedowns. Maybe not in the first round, but in the second and third rounds, I think we'll see her really be successful with it and utilize her physicality to really just hold and wear Lisboa down. I'm thinking Santos by decision +130 is the way to go here. Santos by submission +470 is worth a bit of a consideration. And then on the flip side for Lisboa, if she wins this fight, I'd be surprised it's with her finishing Santos. I think it'll be more so her damage-based approach, maybe defending takedowns and landing damage in the meantime, and that's enough for her to get the win here, and her to win by decision is +260. So something to consider there. All right, next up, we got Yadir Del Valle coming in against Connor Matthews. A fight between two guys that are very physical and pressure heavy in their approaches. Most people would kind of lean on the fight doesn't go to decision here, thinking that one guy will likely finish the other. But I think it's going to be Del Valle's physicality, clinch, and pressure that keeps Matthews on the defensive for most of this matchup. Matthews has been finished, obviously, in the past, so maybe Del Valle can get the finish here. But I think it's going to be Del Valle just not giving him any space to breathe up against the cage, landing some takedowns and just grinding him out, and you can get him to win by decision at +140. On the flip side for Matthews, I really think this is one of those spots where he needs that Hail Mary KO to win this matchup, and you can get him to win by knockout at +1200. That's not a bad line, especially from a hedge opportunity, especially with Del Valle being such a big favorite in this matchup. But again, I'm going to go Del Valle and Del Valle by decision. All right, next up, we got Jared Gordon going up against Thiago Moises. Fun fight here. Interesting puzzle to try to solve, but I have to lean with the American. I think Gordon can do a good enough job in terms of being competitive early, staying away from most of the power of Moises, and then really start running away with this matchup in the second or third rounds with a high volume, high output style. That's usually what causes Moises a lot of trouble in his fights, is when he's not able to dictate the pace or he's not able to get takedowns and control his opponents, he ends up falling short to guys that are able to just kind of keep him muzzled. And I think that Gordon can be successful at doing that as long as his durability holds up. And that's always been my qualm with Gordon, is that, the lack of physicality and athleticism in his game, and sometimes the lack of speed has kind of bit him in the ass in the past. But I think Gordon grinds this fight out. I think he wins it on the scorecards, which is +140 right now. And then on the Moises side, I think he needs to clip Gordon here. I think he knocks him out if he wins, and you can get Moises by KO at +800. All right. Next up, a fight that I do expect to finish inside the distance is going to be Gabe Green going up against UFC newcomer Matthias Camilo. Now, the under 2.5 in this fight is currently set at -135, and I agree with it. I think this is a matchup where Green, who loves to create pocket exchanges and create a little bit of chaos, he will be met with the power of Camilo, and I think it just comes down to who ends up landing first and landing on the target perfectly enough, and I think it's going to be Camilo. I think his athleticism athleticism, his speed is a little bit of an advantage here over Green. And Green, away from action for over 2 years, going back down to lightweight, which is the division he used to compete at before coming to the UFC. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for him at this point in time, dealing with a buzzsaw like Camilo. So Camilo to win by knockout, plus 195. Green to win by knockout, plus 600. So not a bad spot on either side here. I think, again, the under 2.5 would probably be the best way to go about it. But I think that Camilo is the one that ends up coming out victorious, again, by knockout. All right, next up, we got Melquizael Costa going up against Julian Erosa. Both these guys have been very active in 2025. This will be the third time Camilo has stepped foot in the cage, I believe, in 2025, recently defeating Christian Rodriguez in a fight where he was fending off a lot of takedowns and landing big damage. And I feel like this is a fight similar to the one that I just talked about, where violence is going to be a profitable way to approach this fight. The under 2.5 currently sits at minus 150. I don't mind that, but I think that this fight will likely take place in the striking realm for the most part. And I think it's going to be Erosa's, sometimes his flaw is that striking defense, as 6 of his last 7 losses have come by knockout. And I think Costa can take full advantage of that as well. You can get Costa to win by knockout at plus 195, and you can get Erosa to win by knockout at plus 800. I'm expecting violence. Under is where I'm going to go, but Costa by knockout, I think, is the most likely outcome in this fight. All right, next up. This might be a controversial one, but we got Dustin Stoltzfus going up against Nursultan Ruziboev. Everybody loves themselves some Ruziboev. He's tall, lanky, 6'5", has some sting on his shots, 4-1, I believe now in the UFC. But the guy that defeated him, and where we've seen him struggle in the past, are with guys who have been able to effectively take him to the ground, grind him out for that top position, or eventually find finishes from that top position. And I think Stoltzfus is more than capable of that with the BJJ black belt that he has, but not to mention sharpening up on the wrestling that he's been able to do after joining the guys at Extreme Couture over the last year or so. And I think they can put up a game plan well enough here to deal with Ruziboev. Smaller cage as well, so it's not going to be enough real estate for Ruziboev to really tread at distance and get off on his power. And it's obviously possible that Ruziboev wins by knockout, which currently sits at minus 115. But I want to, you guys know me, I like to be the contrarian in certain fights, and this is one of those spots where I think Stoltzfus is the better minute winner, and for him to win by decision is currently plus 650. For him to win by submission, which I think is very likely, is plus 650 as well. His money line is already good, plus 250, plus 300 in certain spots, I'm sure. But I think this is one of those fights where Stoltzfus' grind will eventually catch up to Ruziboev. And as long as he continues to sharpen up that, the gap between grappling and striking, I think Stoltzfus can be, more successful than people originally thought that he could be. So this is a very winnable fight for him. I don't mind these props. Decision would be my bet at plus 650, but the submission at plus 650 is definitely worth a little bit of a gander as well. All right, next up, we got Myron Santos going up against Sodiq Yusuff. Again, a lot of people are very low on Santos after that controversial decision that he had against Francis Marshall from a few months back, but that does not take away from the potential and talent that he still has. Very good striker, high volume striker, likes to put on a lot of pressure, throws in a lot of varieties of strikes, good combinations from the head shots to the leg kicks to the body shots, mixes in the grappling well when he needs to as well. His lone defeat, I believe, came against Dan Argueta back when Santos was trying to make a weight class that he was not, he should not have been trying to make. It seemed like it was impacting his performance quite a lot, and I think that was the issue in his game. But I think Santos by decision plus 165 is probably the best way to go in this matchup. I think Yusuff has often been a tepid-paced kickboxer in the past, and that's bitten him against fighters that are able to put on a little bit more volume, and I think Santos can absolutely bring that to him, which is why, like I said, Santos by decision plus 165. Santos by knockout is currently plus 390. Possibility, but again, a little bit of a long shot in my eyes. And then on the flip side for Yusuff, I think Yusuff needs a knockout to win this fight. I don't think he can compete with the pace and pressure of Santos, and I think it's going to have to be a counter shot from Yusuff that lands on Santos and puts him away. And you can get Yusuff by knockout at plus 750. But again, I like Santos by decision plus 165. And his money line is still pretty good, even around that minus 130 to minus 150 range. All right, co-main event now. Light heavyweights going at it here as we have Paul Craig going up against Rodolfo Bellato. Off the bat, I'm not a big fan of the money line in this fight for Bellato. Minus 500 is outrageous, considering that he's not the most technical guy. He has had some flaws in the past that have put him into some bad positions. And if you find yourself in a bad position against a guy like Paul Craig, more than likely you're going to get submitted. And you can get Craig by submission at plus 750. Ultimately, I'm going to lean with Bellato being able to dictate the pace of this fight, landing bigger shots on the feet, and eventually dropping Craig and finishing him by knockout at minus 160. But again, that's a little bit too chalky in a fight that I expect to be as volatile as this fight should end up being. I would suggest just passing all over. Maybe take a shot at Craig by submission at plus 750, which is an outrageous number in a fight that's supposed to be this chaotic. And knowing how aggressive Craig is with the submission game, possible he gets the finish here, but very weird fight. I'm not going to bother with it at all. All right, main event now, where we got Gilbert Burns going up against Michael Morales. I'm leaning the under 3.5 in this matchup, which currently sits at minus 135. I think we'll see Morales stop the takedowns of Burns. I think we'll see him snatch the momentum and dictate the pace of this fight in the striking realm. And I think that eventually leads to him knocking him out, within the first 3 to 4 rounds. I'd be surprised if this trickles into the 4th round. But Morales by knockout, minus 145, a little bit chalky. So let's try to get a little bit pretty with it. Morales by knockout, in the 2nd round, plus 600. Round 3 knockout plus 800, and round 4 knockout plus 1,000. So those are the ones that I'd consider, sprinkling something on if I want action on this matchup outside of the under 3.5, which is my favorite prop for this fight. And then on the flip side for Burns by submission plus 1,100 is not a bad spot. If he's able to get those early takedowns, maybe he's able to take advantage of, the lack of experience for Morales in terms of fighting higher levels of competition. But we know Burns, after that 2nd round, it's going to be very hard for him to muster up much success if he hasn't had major success in the first 2 rounds. So, I really think Burns will start falling off after that 2nd round, maybe midway through the 2nd round, and that's where Morales is able to snatch the pace, dictate the pace, and eventually find that knockout. All right. Let's get to the top 3 best prop bets and long shot for this UFC Vegas 106 card. Again, I've been struggling a little bit. I'll be completely transparent about that. Last week, we went 0 of 3. Katona by decision plus 190 didn't have a prayer. Shout out to Beksad Almakhan and everybody that was backing him there. Very surprised that he was able to set up the knockout the way that he did and get the finish. Jazz Devisis, I had her by knockout. She wants to go out there and get the submission. It is what it is. We have to rip up that plus 550 ticket. And then Jose Aldo by decision, minus 110. I still thought he won the first 2 rounds, but given the performance that he had in that 3rd round, I'm willing to eat that loss. We have to rip up the ticket there. And then the long shot was Jazz Devicius round 2 knockout at plus 1,700. Shout out to her being overly aggressive, getting the position that she needed to eventually find that finish over Andrade. Jazz Devicius has reached, her prime clearly, and I can't wait to see what the UFC matches are up with next. All right, let's get into this week's top 3 prop bets and long shot. Let's hope we can get one on the board here, folks. We're going to get a little bit risky with it. We're going to go first one up, Luana Pinheiro by decision plus 500. Second one, Hyun Sung Park by decision plus 185. Third one, Matthias Camilo, Gabe Green under 2.5 rounds at minus 135. And then the long shot, I'm going to go, it's against my prediction, but I like this line too much to pass up on it. Elise Reed by decision plus 800. Shuts down the grappling of Gomes, who is not that great of a grappler to begin with. Turns out to be a pure striking battle, and Reed's able to edge her out with her Taekwondo striking style. There you guys go. Prop drop. And that's a wrap on the UFC Vegas 106 content for the week. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. Again, there is no UFC next week, but I will still be dropping a Road to UFC breakdown for the first card. The rest of it will be in written form on the Lock of the Night Patreon page. And LFA, I believe 209 is the card. I'll have the Legacy Warriors podcast for you guys on the day before the card, but we'll have written content for it on the Lock of the Night Patreon page during the fight week. much earlier than the breakdowns on YouTube. So if you want early access to that, check the Lock of the Night Patreon page. And maybe midway through next week, I'll get started on the following UFC cards so we can get a nice little head start. I will say, next week, I am headed back to where I used to live to finish up the last bit of the packing that I got to do before I can completely settle in here. And then, throughout June, you guys are slowly going to see things start to go up behind me here so we can make this studio feel like a legitimate studio, not just me in a prison cell or something like that. So I'm looking forward to slowly putting together the studio here, making it look nice, and giving you guys the quality that you guys have come to really enjoy from coming onto my channel for the last several years. And yeah, it just feels so weird not having anything behind me except this goddamn lamp. But that's the pains of moving and big time moves, and that's what I'm in the transition of still. So appreciate the love, appreciate the support. Good luck on all your action this weekend, folks. Hopefully by the time you guys watch this, my Leafs have won and forced a Game 7. Otherwise, if they haven't, you can pretty much bet your ass that I might have a few tears and be a little bit drunk later tonight, reeling from being let down by the Leafs once again. But hopefully not. Hopefully that is not the case, and we are celebrating their victory tonight. All right, I'll see you guys again on sometime next week whenever I drop the Road to UFC breakdown. See you guys then. Peace.